All right, today we are diving into a framework that is so ambitious, it tries to connect the entire cosmos with our own consciousness. It's called the Atlas Codex. And get this, it's built on a pretty radical idea that balance isn't just a vague feeling, but a measurable, universal constant that literally shapes everything.
So that's the big question at the heart of it all, right? Is there some kind of hidden pattern, a single unifying principle that could tie together geometry, physics, and even the way we think? It's a huge quest. So let's see how this theory even begins to tackle that.
Okay, so to even begin to get our heads around this thing, we've got to start with the basics. We have to learn its fundamental language, which all comes down to one core equation. Seriously, everything, and I do mean everything, in this whole framework builds from this one mathematical concept. It's basically an attempt to put a number on harmony, to actually quantify what it means for something to be in coherence. So, the main goal of the equation is T, which stands for balance. But, and this is super important, we're not talking about being perfectly still. This is an active, dynamic equilibrium. Think about a marathon runner who's hit their perfect stride. They're not static. They're in this constant, rhythmic flow that keeps them going. That state of sustained motion, that's T. So let's break this formula down. First up, you've got P for proportion. In our runner analogy, this is their optimal design, their ideal stride length, the most efficient way they hold their body. The theory says this is often connected to patterns we see all over nature, like the golden ratio, which seems to define the ideal structure for so many things. Okay, so if P is the structure, then kappa, that's K, is all about the movement. It's the rhythm, the timing. For a runner, this is their consistent pacing, the thing that keeps them from burning out. It's all the little adjustments they're constantly making to stay in that balanced state. And that all leads us to R, for resonance. This is what you get when proportion and phase are perfectly aligned. It's that sustained, stable energy that just emerges. For our runner, it's that feeling of being in the zone, where their energy just keeps going and doesn't collapse. It's stable coherence. Okay, now we're going to pivot a little bit. We're moving from physics to psychology. The theory proposes that our minds actually use a kind of geometric language to process the world, built on these four primitives. You've got the triangle for clarity and focus, the circle for connection and empathy, the square for stability and safety, and the spiral for growth and learning. It's like a fundamental map for how we think. All right, so we've got the code, right? The equation and the four shapes. Now let's go looking for it. The theory claims this pattern is actually hiding in plain sight, in ancient history, in nature, and yeah, even inside our own brains. This is where it gets really visual. The theory argues that ancient master builders were actually expressing this very equation in stone. The pyramid, with its perfect fixed geometry, that's proportion, or P. The ziggurat, with its stepped terraces marking a rhythm, that's phase, or kappa. And the dome, with its incredible acoustic harmony that surrounds you, well, that's resonance, or R. And the connections get even more specific, almost spooky. The source material lays out this data that suggests these ancient sites weren't just plunked down anywhere. It claims their latitudes show this uncanny relationship to universal mathematical constants like phi, pi, and the square root of 2. It's almost like they were all speaking the same mathematical language. And on top of that, there's a geographical connection. The theory points out that these sites all seem to be clustered in what it calls a resonant light zone, basically a belt around the globe that gets the most direct sunlight and has a really stable atmosphere. The idea is that these ancient civilizations might have instinctively known to build inside this natural harmonic corridor. Okay, so let's bring this all the way down from ancient monuments to, well, to inside our own heads. The theory applies this exact same idea of balance to our minds. You know that feeling when your mind is just wandering, daydreaming? That's one brain network. And when you're super focused on a task, that's another one. The theory claims that true mental coherence, that T state of balance, happens when those two networks aren't fighting each other, but are actually working together in harmony. So if this pattern is in ancient buildings and it's in our brains, the obvious next question is, what can we do with it? And that's what this last part is all about. The idea of using this as a blueprint for designing a more balanced world. And this is where things get seriously sci-fi. The theory proposes something called the Digital Harmonic World Engine. You can think of it like a digital twin of planet Earth.
The idea is to build this massive simulation that uses the Atlas T equation to model how our environmental and social systems could actually evolve towards stability and resonance, instead of, instability and chaos.
On a more down-to-earth level, this all applies to how we could build our cities. The framework draws a sharp contrast between our cities today, often defined by extraction, competition, and just noise, with a vision for what it calls harmonic cities, which would be built on principles like resonance, coherence, rhythm, and flow.
And look, these aren't just fuzzy ideas. The blueprint lays out some pretty specific rules. For instance, a law of equal proportion, which would mean for every square foot of concrete you put down, you have to create an equal amount of living, green space. Or designing an economy that favors independent makers and growers over huge corporate chains.
But here's a really important point. The theory is very clear about the ethics of all this. This isn't some top-down, forced utopia. This quote says it all. This kind of harmony has to be a choice. It has to be something that's experienced freely, something we grow into, not something that's mandated. It's about evolution, not revolution. Which, brings us to the big final question. The Atlas Codex gives us this incredible, bold, mathematical vision for how the universe works. But can a formula, no matter how elegant, really capture something as complex and beautiful as harmony? Or is true balance always going to be something beyond measurement? It's a heck of an idea to think about.